We're now going to introduce our second panel, which is chaired by Monica Nielsen, who's a lecturer in sales and marketing at GMIT. Monica's going to introduce us to some real life salespeople from local companies, some of whom may actually have quotas. So over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Mark. Hello to everybody. And just before I introduce the panel, the second panel, I just wanted to just briefly give you an idea of some of the courses and opportunities there are within our region for any people that are listening in. Mark said I work at GMIT, and in the School of Business, we've a Bachelor of Business degree in Marketing and Sales. And I think Rory Gahan is online, I see there, and he's one of our ex-students. And so is Chris and Evan. I know you did Hotel and Catering Management. So GMIT is well anchored, I think, in marketing and sales. And sales is something I feel very, very strongly about. I worked in it many years ago, and I think it's something that we're going to keep strong within our college. NUI, as you know, have Bachelor of Commerce, and they have Masters in International Marketing and Entrepreneurship. So they offer programs there that has sales content. But two very strong programs that have been alluded to earlier in the webinar, the Sales Apprenticeship program, and that is run by the Mayo, Sligo, Leitrim Educational and Training Board. And I'd like to thank Brendan Geraghty because he has organised for two very good speakers on our panel who have actually done this program, which is great. And that program is a 2-year, and it's earn and learn. So in other words, there is on-the-job work-based learning, and then there's off-the-job, which used to be face-to-face, but I presume you've gone online like all the colleges as well. So that's a wonderful program. And after, when we finish the webinar, Denise is going to send people who are interested details of how you can enroll in these programs and more details, but you can also Google them as well. The second program I just wanted to mention is run by ITAG, and it's a diploma in inside sales. And it really then looks at core selling skills. It looks at the sales process, everything from prospecting, the whole way through approach, presentation, negotiation, closing the sale and follow up. And again, we have on our panel a graduate from that program as well. So there's lots of training in the area. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel. We have 3 speakers. We'll start with ladies first. So I'd like to introduce Clara Griffin, and Clara is Regional Sales Manager with SalesSense International. So you want to give us a wave there, Clara?
Hey everyone.
Hi. Our second then is Evan Killalay, and he's Key Account Manager with the City Bin Company. So Evan. And then the third is JP Cooney, and JP is with SmartBear. He's Territory Manager for the UK. So I'll start off with Clara. And Clara started her career in CIT with a BA in Contemporary Applied Art. So my question is, could you describe your transition to a career in sales, Clara?
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, so I suppose just well done to everyone for taking this step forward today for that transition into sales. I suppose my own journey here is very varied, and I started off, as you mentioned, in doing a bachelor's degree in contemporary applied arts. So something I love creativity and I love all that side, and it was really amazing. But I'm also known for loving my right side and my left side of the brain. So after that, I moved on to working for Apple as a Mac technician. Which was really interesting. Love all the tech side, and I felt that you're working on the creative side and the tech side was really interesting. But I decided to take another big leap and went off traveling for 3 years around the world, where I got to experience so much, which I believe has led me into a career in sales. I was over in Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia. And I got the opportunity to work in New Zealand as in the Earthquake Commission, which was basically doing insurance for natural disasters. So big eye opener there, something that you could never do in Ireland. But I learned a lot, especially how to deal with difficult situations. And, resilience was definitely something that's been mentioned a lot here already, was definitely brought up there. I then decided to come back to Ireland, and I started applying for jobs in Dubai airport on my layover. So I arrived back in Ireland, had 3 interviews, and one of them was for SalesSense International. So I was only away for 3 years, and 2 days later, I was interviewing for SalesSense with the business-to-business manager there, Drew Healy. And I think he really sold it to me as much as I sold myself to him. And it was really, really interesting. So I decided to take the job with SalesSense. And it was that was 2 years ago this month. And it was one of the best moves I've ever made. Honestly, for me, it's all about learning on the job. And I can say every week I've learned something new since being in this job. And I really put it down, like, for a company like SalesSense has opened my eyes to, I suppose, the world of sales, but also the world of education. And, you know, they've given me the opportunity as well to be part of the sales apprenticeship course, which has, again, every week I'm still learning. Even though I'm in a management position now, I'm still learning about sales, which is fantastic.
Great. Thanks a million, Clara. And I love your enthusiasm and your energy. Second, I'd like to move to Evan and give you the same question. Just to describe your transition, you have a varied career, and would you like to tell us about it?
I suppose will I start at the beginning? So look, after completing my Leaving Cert, which is quite a long time ago, millennium kind of era. So I'm quite old now, and I've changed careers 3-4 times, I think, in that. So after completing the Leaving Cert, I went off up to Sligo to study design and industrial design. I stuck it out for a year, and I realized it just wasn't for me. So I chopped and changed, and I then moved to GMIT to do hotel and catering management, which I completely adored. Loved meeting new people. It was something I really liked. It's something that actually comes towards sales. So meeting new people is a big thing. Speaking to new people, understanding, listening. It's all part of the sales ethos, I think, is the listening part and understanding it. So then, while I love both of those courses, I ended up wanting to do something a bit more practical, and I wanted to have weekends off, which wasn't really an option in hospitality at the time. So in 2004, I began my first apprenticeship in carpentry and joinery, completely changing my outlook on a career. So at the beginning of the last recession, 2008, 2009, work became scarce. Just qualified as a carpenter, so I was lucky to gain employment with the City Bin Company, working on the back of a bin truck, being a bin man. Loved every minute of it. So I've worked in a variety of roles within the business in the 12 years since starting in City Bin. Learning and growing with the business was an important factor to where I am now. We have a dedicated learning and empowerment manager, Oliver Hughes is her name, and she guided me last summer to this new sales apprenticeship that we were doing with Mayo Sligo Leitrim Education and Training Board. So I would have always considered myself a rough diamond in sales previously, with no real guidance other than listening to the customer and then transferring that to selling our service or for other people to be product. So I'd now have a better understanding of the more theory-based aspects of sales, combining my own on-the-job training with the very well laid out guidance from the sales apprenticeship, while continuing to earn and learn at the same time, which is it's one of the big selling factors to me. Was I was able to stay in the job while learning, and the sales apprenticeship nearly shapes how you sell for the actual business you're in. There's a couple of businesses that actually hired people to go straight into the sales apprenticeship. So a lot of people at the first day of the class last September, it was their first day on the job, it was their first day at sales apprenticeship. They're learning so much more about their business that they're selling for at the minute, the values of the business that they sell for, the purpose, the vision of it. I think it's one of the big things for selling any product or service, is understanding what the business is about, where they want to go, and the actual vision for the project and service. So as you said, I currently work as the key account manager, which means I look after some of the most important commercial customers in Galway. There's a couple of them here. Margaret is one of them. Smart Bear is another one. We've a good few. I'm hoping to sign up GMIT at some stage. I'll talk about that after. And a large part of the job requires me to sign up all aspects of commercial customers that have waste, which could be anybody, from surgeries to Smart Bear to Medtronic to whoever. It's a very interesting industry and job path I'm in at the moment.
Evan, thanks a million, and certainly very varied career. Actually, we do share. My primary degree was hotel and catering management as well, and then I scanned it off to America, where I went for, like all good Irish people, you go for 1 year, and I stayed for 9. But I got to specialize in sales, and probably didn't appreciate the wonderful training you do get. And when sales is structured, it is so different than when you're left out there on your own and you meet these walls, and it's not easy. So our third, last but not least, we kept the good wine to last, is JP Cooney. And JP, you actually started in the University of Limerick with a Bachelor of Science in Physics and Chemistry. How
Yeah,
did you end up in sales?
yeah. Thanks very much, Monica. Yeah, so originally I studied down in the University of Limerick. Probably longer than I think in my own head now at this stage. But yeah, I completed a Bachelor of, it was a chemistry and physics degree with education thrown into the mix as well. So I was a qualified teacher coming out the door, but had a science degree with it. I was playing with a successful rugby club down in Limerick at the time, from when I was in college, and I was lucky enough to get offered a professional contract to play rugby in Connacht. So I came up that year after I finished college. I'd been up here playing rugby for, I think it was about 7 years or so. So I suppose when my career was cut short in that, yeah, I had a career-ending injury. I severed my hamstring off my bone, and it wouldn't have been able to stand up to the requirements of professional rugby after that. So I was I won't say I was left in a lurch, but I had some hard decisions to make about, what I was going to do after rugby. And like, I took comfort in the fact that I had my degree already. But a good friend of mine, Colin Egan, who was actually a very successful account manager at SmartBear in Galway at the time, he just had a chat with me and asked me would I have any interest in, getting into sales. So I, like a lot of the other people that are on this call that made a career, I didn't know much about sales, didn't know what it entailed, nothing like that. But Colin had thought that my skills in terms of communicating and being able to connect with people, as well as maybe some other aspects of my characteristics he would have seen, he thought that I would be quite applicable, or I could use them to make a career in sales for myself. So I did, and I went in kind of like on the described career path that kind of Chris highlighted earlier. I went in as an SDR, sales development representative. I was actually worked under Rory, who was also a highly successful account manager. So not only did I get introduced to the core basics and the fundamentals of selling, but then as my time came to make the step up to actual account management, I was able to rely on the experience that was there to I suppose accelerate me through and into the next role. So now I'm the territory manager for the UK for new business in SmartBear. Chris, who you heard from already, is my manager. So yeah, I suppose that's how I ended up where I am. Short enough story, I suppose.
No, thanks a million. And I know from talking to employers and to our ex-students, employers often like to hire people who've played sports, believe it or not. And we always encourage our students to put it on their CV, because employers tell us you've learned how to lose as well as to win. You've learned teamwork, and there's an awful lot of skills that students learn outside that they don't always include, but are something employers look for. I'm conscious of the time. I'll just move on to our second question for the panel, and that's: what challenges did you encounter, and what advice would you give to anyone thinking of moving into sales? So Clara, would you like to?
Yeah, so I suppose when it comes to challenges in sales, I would call it more a learning curve rather than a challenge. So when I first started with SalesSense, I'm a very kind of naturally competitive person, even if it's just against myself. And I felt that I was kind of coming in going, oh, sure, all you need is a good personality, be able to chat, and everything will be fine. So that gets you so far in sales until you might have a bad day and you don't know actually how to assess yourself. So anyone that's thinking of going to sales, I'd really recommend making sure you know how to read your KPIs. So for example, with cold calling, your calls, your decision makers, your presentations, and being able to work out how how many more doors do I need to do to get another sale or to hit my target? And then territory management, I used to go into an area and go, this feels like a good area, without nothing to back it up in the background. So again, territory management, mapping out your week, being able to see, they're all really important pieces that you need to learn rather than already having. And then I suppose just for coming into a company as well, I find it's really important to make sure you're looking at your company's values, and see if they suit you as well. For me, I was lucky. Sales Ed's values would be teamwork, inspiring, and excellence. They'd be 3 values I'd hold close to myself as well. And I think it's very important for anyone looking to change career. Check out the company's values. Do they suit? Do they fit with what you believe in? I say they'd be my 2 main things. I could go on forever, but
No. That's wonderful. Thank you. The same question to Evan.
Well, this is a lot shorter of an answer. I suppose from changing careers a couple of times in my lifetime, the biggest thing that I would have worried about, if I think back to it, would have been the fear of the unknown. And my answer to that is, even at the minute with everything going on around us, is don't fear the unknown. Embrace it and learn from it. With sales, the one tip I give anybody going into it is listening, absorbing it, and passing it on. And that's all you can do. But I think the fear of the unknown, don't fear the unknown. If you're coming from the hospitality side of things or dealing with different people in hospitality and you want to go into sales, it's very similar. It's very similar that you're meeting different people, you're selling to them. You're probably, most people in life are selling all the time. You sell yourself to your friends when you're in school, you sell yourself when you're in the pub, or you sell yourself at mass sometimes, you know. But like, I think the fear of the unknown, don't fear the unknown. Just take the step, take that leap of faith and go in there with your ears open. And that'd be my only real major tip on that.
Thank you. Super advice for people thinking of changing careers. And it is scary, I can imagine. JP, anything else you would add?
Yeah, probably one of the biggest challenges I have, and probably still have, Chris will laugh when he hears me saying this, is the actual technology, because as you can appreciate, I wasn't really using Outlook or anything like that when I was out playing rugby. But yeah, that was probably my biggest challenge. It's just getting up to date and being able to use Outlook and all that. On top of that, then, like, I suppose, like what Evan said about listening, and obviously it's very important to listen to your customers, but I was lucky enough to be put into an environment where I had some highly skilled and experienced people, and the ability, I suppose, to listen to them, pick up what worked for them, you know, try and replicate it or make it your own, whatever you know works for you. I suppose if I had advice, or you know, you asked about advice there, Monica, I suppose resilience, and I know it's a word that's thrown around a lot these days. You know, there's other people have mentioned it on the call, but like every day in sales, you know, you could go in, the resilience, I suppose, to, you know, if you do have a bad day, just park it, put it behind you, come in, you know, the following morning, it's another new day, another new opportunity. Like someone says no to you on the phone, or you're not going to go forward with that, that's fine. You can just hang up the phone and find someone else. You know, I mean, like it's a whole world of opportunity. And, you know, if you think that, you know, just one bad decision or something doesn't go your way, it will define your career, and that's not it at all. You just get back on the horse and go again, I suppose.
Great, thank you. Super advice from everybody. You know, resilience, persistence, fear of the unknown, being courageous, I think, you know, and taking that risk. Mark, I'm a little bit conscious of the time. I did have a third question, but I realize we probably won't be able to get to it. Will I hand back to you, Mark?
Thank you, Monica. We'll take a few questions from the attendees and see how we go, and we might flip back to you, right? So again, thanks to Monica and her panel, you know, especially to the panelists for their openness and generosity in telling their stories. I found it very useful. I have a question here specifically for Clara, which is from Emer. And she said, for Clara, what's it like for a woman in sales?
That's a good question. I suppose what I've noticed is that there's there's some people still believe that sales has this old style of salesperson. So, you know, kind of assertive, a little bit pushy, doing the ABCs, always be closing. And like sales has changed a lot. And I think that old stereotype sometimes can put off women from coming into sales. But the reality of it nowadays, sales is about building relationships, nurturing relationships. You know, it's a different world. And I found myself in sales, like I did have a different view of what it would be like before I went into it. And now that I'm in it, I love it. Like I genuinely, I think women will do really, really well. It's just about taking that step into it and trying it out, because just because there's a salesperson doesn't mean that that's the way you have to be. Sales is all about the beauty of sales is that like everyone comes from different backgrounds. Everyone's bringing different skills. It shouldn't really matter if you're a man or a woman in sales. You know, it is the same thing. Just do it your style, basically, is what I would say to that now.
Great. Thanks for that, Clara. Great answer. And I've got a very obvious question from Andrew, which is, what's the money like? Is it based on commission or what? So who'd like to answer that? Chris.
I can handle that one. Sorry, I couldn't get it off mute. So firstly, I'll start by saying sales is a really honest sport, right? So you get out of it what you put in. And in my mind, it gives you both, right? There's a good salary structure in terms of, you know, fixed income, and that incrementally improves as you progress through the organization. So that's good, right? That keeps rent paid, mortgage paid, wife happy, all that kind of good stuff. And the commission element is the exciting piece, right? That's why many of us jump up out of bed in the morning with a spring in our step, because there's no limit on that. You earn as much as you can. So hopefully that answers your question. You can do both, it just depends how driven you are.
Great. Thanks, Chris. The questions are flying in. There was one question around COVID, and I'm going to just answer it directly, which is that obviously, as you can see, these positions very much lend themselves towards remote working. I think all of the companies, you know, would have had or still have, you know, buildings and Galway facilities that they work out of normally, but it's pretty clear from listening to the people that these are jobs that very definitely lend themselves to remote working, and therefore I guess are quite pandemic resilient. I have a question here from Catherine, who asks, would you recommend doing a postgrad or would you go straight into a sales role with a Bachelor of Business Level 8? So a very direct question. Perhaps Catherine has done a Bachelor of Business. She wants to know, should she go straight into sales or should you go do a postgrad? I think, Monica, you might take that one.
Personally, I'd probably get a little bit of experience. I think sales, and we see students when they come back after getting some work experience, and they're different people. And I think work experience, dealing with customers, dealing with the ups and downs, the days, like everybody talked about, the days that you lose a sale or a customer says no. Being honest, textbooks can't teach you that. That's life. That's, you know, so we often say that sales is a science and an art. The science part we try and teach in the colleges, the sales process and what people talked about, but going out there and getting sales experience to me is invaluable. And with today's learning, there's lifelong learning. You're going to be learning. So there's probably no rush really to do advanced, get some experience. I always encourage students to get with a good company. And we've fantastic companies here today, and you can see how well they look after their employees. And that is, to me, that's really crucial. Somebody who will invest in you, who will train you, who will support you. And they will usually then open up, it could be the sales apprenticeship program, it could be coming back, doing part-time programs, or it could be advanced masters you'll do in the future. But I personally, I would say go for the experience.
Great.
I don't know if anybody else wants to add on.
Yeah, we'll keep moving because there's plenty of questions coming in. We'll try and get to most of them, and I'm hoping that particular answer will deal with a few questions that we had around paths from college into sales. Clara, you're very popular question for you again, right? Did you find that you adapted to sales very quickly, or was it something that you grew into over time?
Yeah, so when I first started sales, as I mentioned before, I loved it. I felt I would be good at it because I'm quite outgoing. It is something that you grow into as well over time. And what I found was really important to me is that I had the backing of a company that was willing to invest time in me to help me grow into the sales role fully. And how I mean that is, like, I knew I could make a sale, which was fine, but then I had the support of my manager, who, if I ever had any issues, even if I didn't realize I had an issue, was able to tell me, look, you might need to change something about your approach. And then as I started moving up the ranks a bit as well, you know, there was always someone there to give advice and to help you out. And like with Sales Sense, we have like different insight programs, like the high potential high performer program. We do managing the Sales Sense way. There's all these courses that really helped me grow into the role as well, along the route. But I think with sales is, as long as you're keen, outgoing, well able to chat, you're going to do well, as long as you're willing to put in the work. And to, like with any sales company, they're going to invest in their people, as long as you're willing to accept that, you know, and be able to take constructive criticism well, and, you know, do something about anything that comes up. Hope that answers the question.
Great. Thanks, Clara, again. And I have a nice question here from Ty, which I think is about trying to find the right company. So I might ask Daryl, actually, if he's still there, you know, his advice around picking the right company to work for. You know, how would you identify the right environment to go into when you're looking at different organizations?
Yeah, I suppose it's a lot of the guys here have spoken about the values of their company, and I suppose the learning and development opportunities and the growth and the training. So I suppose research is the obvious answer. Like, every company here has a website. Every company here has, you know, you can find anyone on this call on LinkedIn and get a little bit more of a sense. But I suppose the other thing to do is to try and reach out to the people in the company, or if you have someone in your network. And I think, again, we're by the nature of a salespeople, we're talkers, and we're always willing to impart a little bit of knowledge. So just having a conversation, you know, it doesn't have to be an interview all the time, or it doesn't have to be a job application. Just ring saying, look, I like the look of your company, I'd be interested in working there. Could have 5 minutes and, you know, talk about what that company is like. I think, again, in the interview process, if you are in that stage, you need to be, you're being interviewed certainly by a company, but I think there's an onus on everybody to interview the company. So, you know, if I join this company, what support will I get from my manager? What support will I get from an education trainer perspective? You know, how will you help me develop my career? What are the expectations of me? Because that's very important. What does the company expect you to do and be able to do? And you have to make sure that's aligned. So I think, as I always say, there's no harm in having a conversation, and by having a conversation, it's a two-way thing. And again, by having that two-way interaction, you'll understand if it's a fit or not for you. And you'll understand if there's a personality match with the people who are in that particular organization.
Great. Thanks, Daryl. I have a nice question here from Damien, which I think it's a question that a lot of us that don't work in sales would want to ask, which is about the kind of the excitement and the fast pace, as he describes it, at the end of a quarter. So I guess I might put this to Catherine, right? That is this a typical sort of dynamic that people sort of chug along for the first couple of months of the quarter, and then the pressure builds and it's frantic coming into the last sort of week of the last month? What's the actual experience for people in that environment?
Yeah, I think that's probably something that every sales manager has to struggle with a little bit, right? To get the team to kind of push, like start strong at the beginning, right? So that's probably what every one of us is doing now in January, trying to start off the year really, really good. But yeah, absolutely. You definitely do have a little bit of excitement at the end. I think it always depends on the company, on how fun you make it, right? Because I think that's like one big part that we haven't talked about yet. It's sales can be like hugely fun, right? It's kind of the competition, but it's really about like working for a good company, making it fun and having a great team, and really enjoying what you're doing and learning on a constant base. I think that's huge. So yes, there's definitely some excitement, but for example, we're celebrating it as a team at a huge amount, and we are using specific tech platforms, right, to celebrate every single win. And I think that really makes it exciting and a great thing that everyone's kind of cheering for one another.
Great, thanks, Catherine. And again, a nice question here, which is, for people that are, perhaps at home at the moment, they're thinking about their next step career-wise. They've listened to the webinar today. Are there courses they could do from home to allow them to upskill, that would actually sort of start their path into a sales career? And I'll invite anybody from the panels to answer that one.
Mark, I might give a bit of a quick insight to this.
Yep.
So if people look at the regional skills network and the sales professional side, what Denise has been doing over the course of the last number of events is putting some material there. So we have loaded some materials there, but I would strongly recommend, and there's a lot of content on a couple of sites that I'd recommend. One is the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. So anybody that's interested in that. But I would strongly encourage you to talk to the academic leaders that we have on the call, people like Monica, people from the education and training boards, because anybody that's maybe, at home, maybe furloughed or unemployed at the minute, there are definite schemes that allow people to go into, full-time courses that would bring you in your career on. The constant that you've heard from all the panelists, apart from the soft skills, is this is the most immersive learning career that I've ever seen. I'm an engineer, but I have never done as much learning. You're learning formally, informally, through networks every single day. So anybody that has that passion to learn, reach out to people in this call. We'll point you to good sites, but the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals, look at the Regional Skills Forum, or reach out to anybody in this forum that knows how to develop. I'm particularly looking at a good colleague of mine, Rory Gowan, and Rory has, I'm sure, a wealth of content for how you develop entry-level salespeople. Rory, you might want to talk a little bit about that.
Go for it, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. I'm really honored to be a part of it. Absolutely, there's a ton, and look, I would definitely leverage everyone on the call here. For sure, I actually seen a couple of questions pop up there as well in relation to the bigger picture. Ultimately, the role in the world we're in now in terms of salespeople, we don't need to have 1,000,001 certificates or completion courses done. Ultimately, we're looking for that personality and for that attitude. So by all means, leverage all of those resources that John mentioned and Monica referred to. But ultimately, if you are someone that's looking to get started in sales as a first-time career, it's all about attitude. And we're looking for people that are coachable, that are curious, that have a natural sense of competitiveness. And that will always trump, I know a couple of things from the book from last week or last month or last year. So if you are looking to get into sales, if I could be of, any help or add any value, please do not hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to point you in the right direction or have a one-to-one conversation with you myself.
Great. Thanks, Rory. I'm just looking through the questions, just one sort of final trawl to see if there's ones that we haven't sort of touched on. Let me see. Yeah, I'd ask Evan the question maybe that if he was interviewing a salesperson for a sales job, what would he look for in the candidate, right? What sort of questions would he ask? I'll put you on the spot there, Evan.
Me? Oh, I'm not even a sales manager. What would I ask? I suppose Rory would have answered a few things nearly in what he said there. You're looking for somebody who's competitive. You're looking for somebody who's approachable. Ask them a question at the start of the interview, see if they remember it by the end of it, and if they listen or not. Would be something else. But I actually think Clara would be the one for this because she is a recruiter. I'd look for somebody who's competitive, who's reasonable, who understands the purpose of the business, let's say, with waste management, which is to do a lot with environmental. It's not just about waste, it's actually customer service is what we sell. So everybody thinks CityBin is just about bins. It's not. It's customer service focused. So it's not about how many bins you collect. It's how the customer views you as a business. And for me within the business, or for somebody in the call center, or for the guy in the truck, it's how the customer views us. Normally the face of the business is the guy collecting the bin. It's not necessarily me. It's not necessarily the manager or the owner of the business or manager or whoever. But what, yeah, no, I think Clara would probably be a better one to ask that question. But put me in the spotlight, yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to direct it to Margaret, because she's lots of experience, right? And I'd ask her the question, right? If you were interviewing somebody for a sales position, what sort of triggers would you look for? What signals would you look for from the candidate?
I think Evan hit the nail on the head there initially with the listening. Now, I'd never thought about asking a question at the beginning and asking them, did they remember that question at the end? So I'm taking that away now. I'm going to introduce it into our own recruitment process. But I think that what we would do is, I love to see preparedness. A good salesperson will always be prepared for whatever it is that they're going to sell. So if they don't come into an interview prepared to sell themselves, which means they're on top of their CV, they're on top of their history, and they can give examples that demonstrates evidence, then they're not really going to be hugely successful, or they're going to need a lot of training and coaching. I think attitude and resilience as well. And I'm almost as impressed by the guys who played on the second division team or the girls indeed, who played on the second division team and never got out of the county in terms of the final, as I am with the people who, from a high performance point of view, made it to the county team or made it to Croke Park or whatever. Because I think, as somebody said, I think it was Monica, you said earlier on, employers love people who understand how to lose as well as how to win. And that's really, really important. And you have to learn from that. And the other thing is just about preparation and presentation. And if you don't understand that, that first 5 seconds or 3 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever, it's getting less and less every day, of that first impression, you can never change that around. And sales is always about the first impression. And that might be your tone of voice, it might be how you look on the screen, or it might be how in the olden days, back to February of last year, you used to shake hands. Those are the kind of things that I would look for when I would be interviewing people.
Great, thanks, Margaret. And we're going to finish with I guess, a question that's been asked by a number of people that Denise just pointed me at, which is, I think we've got a lot of graduates on the webinar, and they want to know how they can make a start and how to approach it, right? So perhaps Catherine, right, again, if I can ask you, if there's graduates coming out of GMIT or NUIG this summer and they're interested in getting started in sales, how would they approach it?
Well, I think, what has been mentioned earlier already, do your research about companies that would actually really interest you in the area, right? So take a look at SmartBear or Diligent or our website or whoever else is on the call, right? And I think just get an idea about what they're selling, because while you don't have to especially there's some technologies out there that you're selling that you probably don't really need to know into detail, because you just won't unless you're an engineer. But see what company actually interests you, and then do your research and see what open positions they have, and really see what will be a fit, and then just start sending out some to start the interview process and send out some resumes and see how it goes, right? And get the experience on how different companies are doing this, and see where you really have a good gut feel. I think it's really about that. The question was earlier as well about how to find the right company, like how a company should be set up. I think it really is about diversity and kind of making sure that that you have development opportunities, that you just feel like these are people that you want to spend a lot of time with, because that's what you're going to do. So I think that's really kind of the most important thing, is just get out there and take a look at the open positions that are on the market whenever you're done, and put out your feelers and start the conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. And we run about 10 minutes over. That's fine. I want to thank everybody for their participation. I want to thank all the panelists, John and Monica in particular, for convening those panels, to Denise and to Anthony for all the infrastructure. I close by saying that we ran this event not because we thought notionally there might be opportunities at some point in the future, there are many companies today, and you've heard from them, who will be hiring now or in the near future. And the banner we had at the start with the names of those companies, we resend that, right? So that there are real opportunities out there right now, and go investigate. And the webinar will be recorded, or has been recorded, and we'll send out the link to you and to those that couldn't make it. And again, thanks to all of you for your time and attention. It's been very useful. I found it very interesting. I hope you found it interesting. And again, thank you, and have a great day. Thank you.